So Lucid Sight, we're a little different from some of the other guests you've heard from so far. We're a venture-backed game studio in Los Angeles. We have 22 people. We're a game studio that got into blockchain versus a blockchain company that's getting into gaming. We've made 10 first-party titles. We have a PlayStation game called HeroCade. My background is also from gaming, along with my best friend John Zwag. We co-founded a company called Gerbo, which was one of the first iPhone gaming companies. We had 14 of the first 100 free iPhone games. We launched partner with the App Store in 2008. So we saw this fantastic arc of the App Store and how it went from zero to a $140 billion industry, and I really wasn't sure I was going to see something like that again in my lifetime. When blockchain gaming started taking off, I got really excited about this being another big platform. Gerbo is now the large ad network, Ad Colony. This is a portfolio of some of our games. We've done a lot of VR titles. We've done titles for the Rift, the HTC Vive, Daydream. HeroCade's our PlayStation title. This is our game CSC. This is our large game we're working on right now called Crypto Space Commander. It's built on Ethereum. There's no ICO, no token to play it. It's just right on the Ethereum blockchain, similar to CryptoKitties. So 2018, Icl Growth. Obviously 2017 was the year of crypto, got everybody excited, mostly because of the money and the price action. People thought ICOs might taper off in 2018. They have not. We're up to over 7 billion. Now, obviously, the ICO has been the killer application of Ethereum to date. There's not a lot of applications of crypto. Bitcoin makes interesting money, makes interesting digital store value, gold. Ethereum obviously can be used to fund projects like Kickstarter or securities. But some very clever people a couple years back started putting digital artwork tied to the blockchain in the form of Rare Pepes, CryptoPunks, Curio cards, Spells of Genesis. And a lot of this was done kind of bespoke before there was a good standard on the Ethereum network like the ERC 721. So they all made their own custom wallets and they all had their own custom software. But there was a little community around it. CryptoPunks probably had a few $1 million in market cap at its peak. Then CryptoKitties came on the scene and went viral. Over $60–70 million of transactions have gone through CryptoKitties. That company has probably cleared about 7 million of it themselves. And it was all because of the ERC 721 and ERC 20 token standards making their way into games. So again, we are basing our game, Crypto Space Commander, on the ERC 721 and ERC 20 Ethereum standards. So much like ICOs, the things that kind of catches people's attention with these digital assets in these games are the astonishing stats that are just so different from traditional gaming. CryptoKitties has well documented, sold over 6 cats for over $100,000. And yes, 2 days ago, they actually broke the record with a $140,000 cat. Which again, to non-crypto people, that seems kind of a little ridiculous, but to crypto people, they seem to understand this. And the proof is that we came on the scene with our game that's about a month old. It's Crypto Space Commander. It's our take on EVE Online on the blockchain. It's one of the first MMOs on the blockchain. It is the first Unity game playable on the blockchain. We sold our spaceship, our largest space station, for $53,000 in the Ether at the price it was purchased, at the date it was purchased. We sold another ship for $5,000 and another ship for $11,000. So people are spending real money on these digital collectibles to play them in the games. So we like to put the question on its head. Well, why are people willing to spend so much money on digital collectibles now that they weren't in the past? And I go back to digital licensing. I believe the concept that you don't own something digital is almost a historical accident. Back in the 80s, when Microsoft was coming out with Windows, they would sell you a box of floppy disks, and they didn't want you putting the floppy disks on 100 computers. They wanted to get money for each computer, so they invented the digital license. And everybody said, well, I guess this is the only game in town, so we'll accept this. Then the internet came along, and people started buying software over the internet, like Steam. Now all of a sudden you have a license from the software developer and from Steam. And again, the people kind of understood, well, I don't really own this. I have a somewhat of a perpetual license to use it. But the licenses became even more draconian in the sense they could be changed whenever the developer wanted. They could just, flippantly say, now that you can do this, now you can do that. Then digital media came around, and the concept of copying became very ubiquitous. If I give you an MP3 and I have an MP3, nobody really cares who had the original MP3. If I give you my Bitcoin, I no longer have my Bitcoin. I'm sad I don't have my Bitcoin. So I don't think people fully understand this concept yet. They don't, like, the diffusion hasn't happened with the mass public, that they own their iPhone, but they don't own the software on their iPhone. And I don't know if the time frame is 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I think over some period of time, consumers will be willing to pay different amounts for renting versus owning, just like with physical stuff. So physical owning, let's just throw it on its head and say, what if ERC 721s are more analogous to physically owning something than they are to digitally owning something? If I told you, Ford said, I'm going to sell you a car, but it's really a license to use your car. You can't change the window tinting, you can't change the tires, you can't improve the engine, and when you're done with it and tired of it, you can't sell it, which is the true hallmark of owning something. You'd say that's crazy. Ownership is a fundamental part of capitalism and democracy. And we own our house, we own our boats, we own our cars. For some reason, we're okay not owning the digital stuff in our lives. So why does this matter for gaming? Gaming is very similar to, I like to analogize the gamer to the old antique car enthusiast, where they spend a lot of time on their car. They improve it, they decide whether or not they want it to be rusty or they want a fresh paint job. They decide if they want to put a modern engine in or an older engine. It's all very, very custom to that person and very unique and special to that person. People put so much time into these games. I mean, these games are close to their heart, and different amounts to different people. And almost all of these games have an economy in them and a lot of grinding. Grinding is the term that game makers use for when a player spends hours and hours building up. And a lot of games like World of Warcraft and Skyrim have explicit economies that are fundamental to the game, where you're deciding how do you want to play the game. Do you want to craft potions? Do you want to build armor? But after you're done playing, or if you get really good at doing it, you can't sell any of that stuff. So what crypto's allowing us to do is take a lot of game concepts that have been around for a while and reinvent them. So CryptoKitties completely would have fallen flat if it was on a database. Nobody would have cared. Another breeding game. Breeding games were popular in the 80s and 90s. You played them on an LED screen. But CryptoKitties, because this concept of true digital ownership came about, people were really excited about it, and obviously it's been the huge viral success. We're trying to reimagine EVE Online with CSC. EVE Online, we're big fans of the game. It's an homage to it. It's been a 15-year running game, still super popular. It's a player-controlled economy, but at the end of the day, CCP owns all the assets in that game and is giving you a license to use those assets. We're basically saying, well, what does it look like if we don't control it? When somebody crafts a ship, we literally have no say in what they do with that ship. So for those not familiar with crafting, I'll go through a quick core game loop of what that looks like. You explore stars, you mine, you obtain raw materials, and you refine. But part of it is you have to know how to build the stuff. So you have to decide if you're going to take things apart and learn how to build it. And this goes to completely controlled player economies. And the sort of fantasy that you can make the leap of is there will be people who actually do this full time at some point in their life. So what do you do with the stuff once you build it? Well, there's been a series of marketplaces that popped up, and a couple of them actually have been venture funded. OpenSeas and Rare Bits, analogous to eBay. Basically, what do you do with your stuff when you want to sell it? You go to eBay. The difference with crypto gaming is a lot of the marketplaces are actually reside in the game as well. So probably 80 to 90% of the transactions will be in the game in terms of people reselling. So future implications. Probably the biggest future implication is that the assets can be sold for dramatically different dollar amounts from the games, right? So traditionally, a game developer says, what's the average price I can get from each of the players? 60 bucks, 20 bucks. But the thing is about a game, take a game like World of Warcraft. That might be somebody's primary source of personal entertainment. That might be the thing they spend all their time on. They might be willing to spend a lot more money on that game, but everybody kind of ends up spending about the same amount of money. Well, the reason is because you don't feel like you own it. You're not going to dump $10,000 into something and feel like it could just have the rug pulled out from underneath you. As soon as you can resell your assets, you're now willing to put more money into the game because you feel like it's an asset as opposed to just something that's in the sandbox of the game. Then the other interesting thing is the assets can be taken out of the game. So I think anybody who's making good crypto games right now is not trying to control the assets of their game. You actually want other developers to take your assets out and make other games. That's almost, I think, a sign of success. And CryptoKitties has, obviously transcended this by having there's a few offshoots. They're not super popular or anything, but a few offshoots where people are playing games with their CryptoKitties, like Kitty Racer and Kitty Battling. So, the title of the panel is how this doesn't become a fad, or why this isn't, CryptoKitties isn't a flash in the pan. And there's a very real risk it could be a flash in the pan, and I don't want us to sort of take for granted that this is a done deal. Crypto gamers have to decide if they want to use, crypto gaming developers have to decide if they want to use modern gaming techniques and graphics, or do they want to be completely on-chain. And I think this is going to be a hard decision that people are going to have to make. If it's completely on-chain, there will be sacrifices. If it's completely off-chain, there will be sacrifices. The middle ground is where we are going to land as a company. We want to develop our games in Unity. We feel very strongly that this has to be a good game first and crypto second. And I also throw out the point that consumers only have so much bandwidth in their life for a new category. And we're really excited about this, and this is the biggest deal to us. Typically, consumers land on one or two things to entertain themselves in a category. I take Netflix as a classic example. There's no reason why you couldn't cobble together your TV viewing, your video viewing from 100 different sources. But people typically watch Netflix and maybe one other source. There's, of course, iOS and Android, and tons of other examples of this. And we use the term the mobile gaming funnel in the iOS Android world, where every click you make a user do, you reduce the funnel and you lose users. And right now in the dApp gaming world, we're already asking consumers to do a lot. Go get your Ethereum on Coinbase. At least you can go to Coinbase and get it, though. I mean, it's not that hard to open a Coinbase account, and you can even use a credit card. Next, you have to install MetaMask. Then you have to do, the other steps. Maybe somebody adds VR into the stack. And it's not to say any of these decisions are right or wrong. It's to say that everything you ask a consumer to do, you're going to lose somebody in that funnel. And I think it's something we have to be very cognizant of, and we're trying to make the funnel as broad as possible. Again, I go back to modern gaming engines. I just believe that consumers will demand the same fidelity in these games that they demand in mobile gaming. And I believe in a year from now, we'll be talking a lot more about gaming in this than crypto. The crypto is an important part. It completely changes what it is. But the thing about gaming is everybody has about the same competitive advantage in crypto because it's only a few years old. Gaming has been taught for 30 years. There's graphics, and it's more art than science. There's people who are game designers. Our lead game designer has worked on 4 of the Tomb Raiders. This is stuff that's like making a movie. You can't just do a startup company and make movies. You need to really stick to what has worked and what consumers like. And I think the next thing is also brands with affinity. I mean, again, Gen 1 can get away without brands with affinity, but I think Gen 2, people are going to want to see the brands they love. They're going to want to see Star Wars characters. They're going to want to see superheroes. Now the good news is this all ties back into collecting, right? These are all very collectible things, and so I believe we're very optimistic about the future with brands and quality gaming. I'm going to leave on this note that collectibles are an investment you can enjoy. It's one of the few things, a book I read when I was much younger called A Random Walk Down Wall Street. It spends the whole book talking about stocks are the best, and then ends saying, but a house is the only thing you buy that you feel like holds its value, but you also get to enjoy it. Paintings, artwork, Pokemon Go cards, comic books. There's something that people can enjoy, and so I think it has a special place in people's future. That's it.
Great. Nice and short, so more opportunity for questions. If you can wait till the microphone comes. Hi. Wait for the microphone. And if you can say who you are and where you're from, that'd be great.
Dr. Chris Hartz. I've worked in virtual reality for over 20 years and a lot of this kind of thing. Do you have a good example of a company that owned a game that let itself be talked into a small piece of a giant pie instead of a big slice of a smaller pie, that is to let other people's skins and so on into their game world?
Yeah, I mean, skins are, that's a part of gaming. So some of this existed already. There's already skins for Counter-Strike. Is that what you're talking about? Like, just to understand your question.
As opposed to WoW, where they own everything, to let other people come into their domain.
Yeah, I mean, even WoW, a very long time ago, let there be mining and let people have secondary markets for mining. And it's a well-told story where there were actually like big money, tens of millions of dollars of WoW mining farms in China. And just one day, Activision, Blizzard, just said, no, we're going to change the rules. So I think fundamentally, any sort of, they use the term trustless in crypto. Anytime a system is tied to a central authority, they can just change the rules on you. So while they may be letting you do that, and what that does, that puts a cap on the amount somebody's willing to spend on it. Inherently, it's not to say that there's, not to say that you don't trust Blizzard or you think these companies are all going to just change the rules all the time, but you kind of get to a level where you're like, I don't know if I could quite go over that. Or again, we've seen with our game, our own first-party experience, that people are willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars on in-game assets with a company that doesn't have a, that long a history.
Okay, there's one down here.
Hi, my name's Phil. I'm from a group called Crypto Gaming. I'm a big fan of
Phil, yeah.
your game, by the way.
Nice to meet you in person.
Excited for it, yeah. No, I think one of the consequences that I've noticed of this digital ownership, in addition to all the benefits, is that it leads a very big, a lot of room for speculation in terms of values and whatnot. And I think we really saw this pretty clear in CryptoKitties, where that first booming week or so, people were spending thousands on these cats that, then a week or so after just lost 90% more of their value, and there's not really any signs that any of these are going to return. So my question to you is, what do you think the role is for a game developer in, I guess, informing its users of the risks of, over speculating on these game assets and addressing the emotional and personal consequences that people might get themselves in as a result of, I guess, poor decisions on their part in terms of how they relate with these assets? Yeah,
well, I think that CryptoKitties did not, they did not expect the success they had. I think that, that's an unreproducible situation what CryptoKitties had. They had lightning in bottles, and they did a lot of things really right, but the game was a very basic game, right? And it didn't have the room for a sort of next level. There was no kind of expansion on that universe. We chose a space game in particular because, again, space games have been popular. These space exploration crafting games have been popular in every generation of platforms. So you go back to iOS to PlayStation. There's always been successful, and PC. There's always been successful space exploration crafting, and they give a room for an ever-expanding universe, right? So I think really the important part, and I think a lot of this sort of trustlessness of crypto, people kind of forget about the devs. I think our main duty is to continue to nurture that game and give the people who spent $10,000 something that is valuable going forward, right? This isn't Bitcoin where we drop it off and say, hey, I don't know, we don't know who Satoshi is, and but Bitcoin obviously only does one thing. Bitcoin just measures the value, who owns a Bitcoin, right? These games have to do a lot of things. So I think that's going to be a big part of it. And then this is so new, we're just going to have to see if problems evolve. I mean, it's really hard to say. We don't even know personally the people who bought our stuff. Right, and they don't want to be known. We know that a lot of, generally speaking, when somebody's spending over $10,000, they're buying it from an Ethereum wallet that has millions of dollars in it. So they're typically not a I mean, they're people who are really into crypto at this point. So they're people who have made a lot of money in crypto. These are probably the main customers right now.
Okay.
I don't know.
Who done that?
Yes, my name is Andrew. We have a small indie studio. And my question to you is, as we're kind of looking at and trying to understand all this, the part that's puzzling to us is, yes, with blockchain, you can verifiably own these digital assets. But at the end of the day, if the game goes away, let's say the CryptoKitty site goes away tomorrow, then those assets still lose their value, right? So to your assertion that people are willing to pay a premium for these because it's guaranteed ownership, but that ownership only has value in the context that the game maker continues to update the game and make the game available. So I'm kind of trying to understand that a little more.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think with all, like most crypto projects, they need to be developed on for a long time. I mean, Ethereum needs continued development. It's not a finished product as it stands right now. Our game will be continued to be developed on. We actually big part of our plan is a rollout of levels of the game, of levels going over time. It kind of goes to what people are buying and what is ownership, right? Sure, CryptoKitties goes away, but is taking a screenshot of the kitty that complex? You still own the blockchain contract. So our view on that is that this isn't 100% a blockchain answer. A lot of this is an open source answer. A lot of this is, I think there's a lot of games, like, for example, that have been sunsetted that actually would have lived on if the developers had put a server, let the server, continue on and let the fans. So if our game has the fan engagement it has right now, because we have tremendous fan engagement. On our launch, we had 750 ships simultaneously flying, right? So if that fan engagement continues and say we just all die somehow and can't support the game, which isn't the plan, I suspect that the fans will come together, just like if all the mining rigs in China went away, somebody who owns a lot of Bitcoin will just launch a mining rig at home. You're going to support the thing you've invested in.
Okay, final question, this gentleman there.
Hi, I'm Mike Jones with 8th Circuit Studios. Some of the things you're talking about are things that we're also have been working on. I think a lot of people in this room probably the same situation.
Great.
So when talking about like ERC 721 tokens and our items and using them in other people's games, how do you think that impacts the development community as a whole, and what does that do to the publishing model? And how do we encourage publishers and other larger businesses to actually be okay with using assets from different products and things like that?
I mean, I would be shocked if the sort of existing, I mean, much like we saw this with iOS, it was a very long time and winners were already made before the big guys got into the mobile space, right? I mean, we started in 2008, it wasn't until free-to-play took off in 2010, and then even then, King and Supercell ended up being the two dominant companies. So I don't know that we can really expect the big players to embrace crypto at all in the near term. So to be determined. It would be fantastic if they did, but I'm not sure that's really something. I think it's really going to be more of like, does CSC and CryptoKitties find a way to, collaborate? It'll be the indies kind of playing with each other right now.